Tonight on Podcast Them Down, we're talking about 10 minutes of music stretched into 2 hours. Podcast Them Down! Hail Metal Nation, we are continuing with Iron Maiden, where we are working through the entire Iron Maiden discography. This episode will cover the 2 Blaze Bayley albums, the X Factor and Virtual 11. And if you're going to Google that, that's Virtual XI.
I thought it was Virtual Kai. I thought it was a
Virtual Kai. Well, that's the hologram that Halloween's going to use when Kai Hansen passes away. Virtual Kai.
Ooh, Virtual Kai.
They'll just cart it out for I Want Out and then put him away again. All right.
Do you want me to tell the Blaze Bayley story from memory and then you correct me?
Yes.
What I want to do is talk about Bruce Dickinson leaving. So
okay.
Yes, go
when
ahead.
we left off, they had put out Fear of the Dark, and there was a whole lot of I didn't introduce us. I'm Tim, that's Matt and Doug. This is Podcast Them Down, and you're gonna hit like and subscribe and hopefully join the Patreon so we can afford to go to Edmonton to go see what were we seeing?
Right, yeah.
Iron Maiden, that's right.
Iron Maiden. And you know what? They're both in Edmonton and Calgary within 2 days. So if we get enough patrons, we'll go to both shows.
Yes, and we're based in Baltimore, Maryland, so you know it's a long flight, international even. Why Edmonton? Why did that come up?
It just seemed like the best place to see Iron Maiden.
All right, I'm okay with that. All right, so they put out Fear of the Dark. I'm looking for. They had an extensive worldwide tour. I'm looking for they called it the Fear of the Dark tour. So they didn't have a nice, cute little. They couldn't call it Tour of the Dark or Fear of the Tour or something. You know,
Tour of the
I guess they realized on the previous tour that they needed more lights and lasers. So the tour was smaller, I believe. 66 concerts in 92. They had over 1,000 lamps and lasers. And scenery partly reminiscent of what they had used in the 80s. So I think they're trying to correct a little bit, but within the budget of keeping their live show big. Then, so it says the tour witnessed the personal conflicts between Bruce Dickinson and the rest of the band. So he leaves in 93, but he did a farewell tour and 2 live albums with the band before leaving, and they are a real live one and a real dead one.
Get it?
Yeah. So, oh wait, there we go. So they, man, that's shorter than I remember. That's what she said. They said Dickinson would only perform properly for high-profile shows, and at several concerts he would only mumble into the microphone. Dickinson denied that he was underperforming, stating that it was impossible to make Mr. Happy Face like Mr. Happy Face if the vibe wasn't right, and that news of his exit from the band had prevented any chance of a good atmosphere during the tour because he had already quit before the tour. So they're like mad that he's phoning it in, allegedly. I don't know. So, they did 3 nights in Moscow at the Olympic Stadium. And then his last show with Iron Maiden until his return was August 28th, 1993, and it was released as Raising Hell, which I think I have on VHS.
Okay. I think you do.
So if anyone has a VHS player. So in comes the new guy. So Doug, take it.
All right. So they a band called Wolfsbane had opened for Iron Maiden.
Correct.
Steve Harris got along with Wolfsbane and their singer Blaze Bayley, who was a dark and complicated guy, which is why Wolfsbane is a party rock band. So they needed a new singer, and hey, there's Blaze Bayley. Let's just talk to him. So Blaze comes in. We'll get into. I mean, it should be pointed out. Blaze is a baritone, and most Maiden, especially the popular stuff, is all rather done in the operatic Bruce Dickinson style. And for good or bad reasons, the band infamously made very little effort to accommodate Blaze's voice.
Yep.
So in the 5 years he was with the band, he would, go up in front of diminishing crowds, have people yell, "You suck," and then kill himself each night trying to hit these notes written for someone else. Mm-hmm. And then, be blamed for the band canceling shows because he has no voice. So it would seem to have been a very interesting existence for Blaze. But we start off in an okay place with the X Factor.
So, yes, very good. Again, they just, Steve Harris knows how to do one thing, turn the crank and then write a chorus that's just the song title. And he only knows how to do it in a certain range and completely irrespective of Blaze's vocal range. And particularly the what I got out of these albums was that there is an area, there's a note range where Blaze can really nail it and put a lot of power behind it, but they spend almost no time there. They're at the edge where he's focusing on singing
the razor's
notes.
Edge.
Yes, the razor's edge. He's delivering notes. He's not because it's just physically not where he has his power and support that they no doubt heard from Wolfsbane. So it's a shame. Both these records, I'm hoping they have a parental advisory because both these records are just Steve Harris fucking Blaze Bayley to death.
You just did the Eric Cartman thing.
It's one thing for read the Run to the Hills authorized biography of Maiden. It's great. It was written in '99, so every chapter but the last one, Blaze is in the band, and then the second to last chapter, they're all optimistic. Then the next chapter is them kicking Blaze out the door and talking about how horrible he was and inviting in Dickinson. So as I understand it, they all do get along. It's not the worst situation, but the live performances with Blaze are very revealing, and one thing it does reveal is Blaze's commitment. Yeah, absolutely. He did. Yeah, I think he did the best he could with what he was given, but he was set up for failure, and this was never going to work. And again, it's not Judas Priest. But at to make the Judas Priest comparison, they were smart. They went for a Halford clone.
Yeah.
Period. Well, a Halford clone plus, right? Yeah. Because Ripper could do the alternative sound. Like Blaze was a good singer for a different style of music. And I think we'll get into this in our future in Judas Priest. But Priest sort of brought Ripper in to do Priest and take the sound in a different direction. Steve Harris was not materially interested in taking the sound in a different direction. The X Factor, the subverting stuff, but no, it's still Iron Maiden is Iron Maiden, and we'll get to it in a few minutes, but Virtual 11 is literally them just eating themselves. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, it is. I mean, I couldn't. I thought full disclosure, I have never listened to these albums before preparing for this.
I actually haven't ever listened to these albums all the way through in a sitting. And
well, I wouldn't say I've listened to these albums all the way through. Well, even now, I can't comfortably say I've listened to these albums all the way through, but I've listened to every song, at least a portion of it. And if you told me that this was songs from an ill-fated mid-90s, like off-Broadway rock opera, I would say, okay, I get that. I am actually surprised that Blaze Bayley is English. There's just a very he's like one of those British people that sings American. There's something theatrical, but not in a good way, and kind of not mid-Atlantic, but like American, but not in a good way. That does not work for me whatsoever.
I think you raised an interesting point. And just thinking about some of these songs, it's, American dreams, American problems, coming from a quintessentially British band. But that's interesting. And I'm just thinking Man of the Edge, 2 a.m., Edge of Darkness.
Oh, we'll get there. Hey, what was that band? Fear Factory. Let's start with the cover. The cover is Eddie getting vivisected.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like a preview of what happens to the listener.
Well, it's reversible. There's an electric chair, Eddie, on the other side. That was okay at like Walmart.
Yeah, exactly.
It
was too graphic, so they gave them like an alternate way of displaying it. And then track list. Sign of the Cross, Lord of the Flies, Man on the Edge, Fortunes of War, Look for the Truth, The Aftermath, Judgment of Heaven, Blood on the World's Hands, The Edge of Darkness, 2 a.m., and The Unbeliever. And like Gers came in a while ago and they wouldn't let him write anything. Like, he didn't write anything.
Yeah.
Blaze Bayley comes in and he's got songwriting credits on 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, which is...
Yeah, and I think we'll see on both records that Blaze writes both some of the most Maiden songs and the best songs.
Yeah, that is... and I would say, before we go into the tracks themselves, musically, not vocally, not lyrically, but musically, I kind of like how this is developing, especially thinking about what other kinds of heavy progressive blues music is doing in the mid-90s. Like, in the context of 1995, if you could like deselect the vocal track, there's some interesting musical stuff going on here, but not entirely.
Yeah,
but there's elements at least.
Yeah, I'd be okay with muting the vocal track because once again, it's the whole record has been Steve Harris, where he doesn't bother to write a chorus. And I know I keep bringing it up, but the reason I keep bringing it up is because it's the single most aggravating thing on all of these records where it happens. And then preview for the next episode, someone pushes back, it seems, and he doesn't do it so much finally. So yeah, so when it happens, I got to call it out every time. Sign of the Cross, Sign of the Cross, Sign of the Cross, Sign of the Cross. 11 minutes of fucking Sign of the Cross. Oh my God.
Well, you got the 4 minutes till the song starts. So
okay.
Oh, you mean like the pre-song?
The pre-song.
Yeah, you have to listen to the pre-song before you get to the actual song.
Yeah, and this is a very frustrating record because unlike the next one, all of these songs have good moments, and they all have very annoying ones, and some of them sort of cross the line to be decent. Some are just wasted, and some are terrible. But there's some interesting things in all of them. And Matt, to your point, the production is a little darker in kind of a 1995 way. It actually works. They know what the box is, and they do stay in the box, but while getting a little more relevant.
But again, like, it's interesting because it's not like sludgy, right? So like the recording itself is fairly clean. Like thinking of like a Rage Against the Machine, or some of these like more mid-90s, like even like a Garbage, or like a Smashing Pumpkins, like a heavier Smashing Pumpkins record. Like you expect kind of like this muddy choppiness, but all these they're heavier, but they're cleaner, in a strange way.
Yeah, and even though I think Steve Harris produced this, the production is decent, just not the editing.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything about the production other than, you know, the notably weak notes from Blaze, and I wonder if they could have mixed the vocals a little differently. Like,
you mean like turned off the volume?
Yeah, no.
Or not gotten the guitars directly out of his range just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
it just seems like
just carve out some room for these songs, Blaze, because Blaze isn't Bruce.
You know, but I get if you're singing if you're the new vocalist to a band that has a slate of classic songs, I can understand if you have a different vocal character, maybe you won't necessarily have the right voice or the same voice. You're gonna have to change that performance. But these songs ostensibly are written for him, right?
Yeah,
there should be no excuse here. Like, it's a surprise that he has to sing "Can I Play with Madness?"
No,
but
I don't think
it's not a surprise. He has to sing "Judgment of Heaven."
I disagree. I don't think they were written for him. I think Steve Harris and said, "Here you go.
Yeah.
Good fucking luck."
And sort of to that again, Blaze is if you look at him now, and he recently had a heart attack and he's recovering, and we wish him well.
Yeah.
But that man, every year of his life is there. Like he's completely there at all times, and you can feel that in the stage presence, all that. He's a very intense guy, and you think some of this darkness is from him, and maybe some of it is, but a lot of that is Steve Harris, who was going through a divorce, and his father died, and like, so that. They have this new singer who could do a different style, but it's not even about that. It's about Steve Harris's life.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, Sign of the Cross, I already mentioned. Lord of the Flies, last movie Steve Harris saw again.
Yeah. Oh, Sign of the Cross, too. It's
Sign of the Cross is one.
The Name of the Rose. Which is a book, but I'm sure this is the Sean Connery movie.
Umberto Eco.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
Man on the Edge. The thing about Man on the Edge, the single for this. Okay, so typically every song Maiden writes goes on the album. But for the X Factor, there were 3 songs. Listen closely. There were 3 songs that were not good enough for the album. If you can believe it. Those 3 songs are on the single for Man on the Edge, so you can go find them.
Yeah, and I'm happy you brought that up, because there's like Justice of the Peace, I Live My Way, and then one other song. 2 of the 3 of them are definitely that they're all like shorter, faster songs. Just what the album needed.
Yeah, really.
And in these 70 minutes, they couldn't find the space to, put something that would like kick the album up a bit. Anywhere.
70 minutes, the longest Maiden record at the time. The other song was "The Edge of Darkness." No, you said that. Okay, well,
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day.
Yeah,
not to be confused with Judgment of Heaven
or Justice of the Peace. Everything's too similar.
But also, Yannick and Blaze have gotten Steve Harris syndrome because I'm reading here on the Wikipedia page. The song is based on the film Falling Down, starring Michael Douglas.
Falling Down. Yeah, it's not. They don't. It's so hidden there.
Yeah, and I think some of the guitar lines also get Steve Harris too. Or I forget if it's this one or it's probably Virtual 11. When we talk about that, just remember that I said this. Like, some of the guitar lines repeat too many times. Like, come on. It's just like, trying to fill this big space with a bunch of nothing.
This record, what's frustrating, this is a 72 season syndrome a bit. Every song is, you got the plotting opening, often acoustic, then amp up into something heavier, and then it goes on for 2 minutes too long. Then you start over just again and again and again.
Yeah, but
with only like Man on the Edge and Word of the Flies, the two of the first three songs breaking that up. They open with the longest song, and a lot of people like Sign of the Cross. I'm not one of them. But
they're called
again, I don't want to be like impose a how you order an album, but I don't know in what universe you open with your longest atmospheric driven song.
All the previous ones open strong and fast. I mean,
like Man on the Edge, especially I think the radio edit would do, if there was one. I forget it.
This would be a much better. Well, it would be a better opening.
I mean, just take I Live My Way, Judgment Day, swap out for you're probably cut 3 of the songs that all sound the same we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
There's a good album hiding in here. I mean, I forget when it was recorded, but there's also a decent song called Virus that was a single. There's a video and not released on either album.
We should add that to our Patreon watch.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. Yeah.
So the 72 seasons comparison, by the way, still have it right here. The 72 seasons comparison. At least Metallica like tries to go somewhere with varying levels of success. Like, they don't even try to go anywhere. They're like, let's just repeat this again. So Fortunes of War, then Look for the Truth, then The Aftermath. I feel like Fortunes of War and The Aftermath are just more uninspired lyrics, because they're both about war, but like generally, unless they're about movies I'm not aware of.
Well, I mean, you raise I kind of think about it. Fortunes of War is a piece of shit. So I'm going to not talk about that as much, but I actually like that because they, Aces High, all that are arguably kind of jingoistic in the style of Sabaton. And now they're dealing with the consequences of war on this record. Maybe you don't want to be bleak and slow every song and do 3 repetitive songs all about the same thing, but they're acknowledging another side of something you could criticize the band for showing only one side of in the past.
That's fair.
Okay, there's maturity, but I'm not sure I want mature reflection from Iron Maiden. I just want some fucking Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I have written here earned darkness, unlike Jugulator. But there's too much of that.
Whoa. I just vibrated into the alternative universe where Tim Ripper Owens is the lead singer of Iron Maiden, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, you could do those Fear of the Dark songs. He could nail all of the AC/DC.
I've seen him do. He does cover Maiden on his on some of his. You know, he has so many things he tours under. One of them is just general metal covers, and I've seen him do Maiden. He's really good at it.
Tim Ripper Owens, GMC.
The only other song that sticks out is 2 a.m.
Yeah,
because it's like complaining about watching late night TV. Well, turn it off and read a book.
Yeah,
which is also my review for this album. Turn it off and read a book.
Although I do think that this song really captures well the feeling of just wishing you could sleep, and yet sleep won't come.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot more suicidal ideation on this record than typical for Maiden.
I was uncomfortable with that. I mean, because it says Iron Maiden on it, you know?
All of these songs should not be on this record,
or any record.
You take, I basically like, there's a good stuff in Looking for the Truth and the Aftermath. I would actually go so far as to say I like Judgment of Heaven and Blood on the World's Hands.
Yeah, it's not
with
bad.
the Joey DeMaio bass part.
Oh, well, I forgot about that. Yeah,
it was refreshing, at least.
And Edge of Darkness, at least they're not hiding that it's actually about Apocalypse Now and not the Joseph Conrad novel. There's some good atmospherics in that. I like the lyrics, and you know when Blaze is the 15% of this album written in his natural range, he's very good at, and he's very good with the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's not a total utter failure.
And it's like The Unbeliever is not good, but like you can't have The Unbeliever and Sign of the Cross. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, let's throw a number at this. I want to rate it low, but I need room to go down. So I'm going to give it a 2.
Oh, I was going to give it a 3, actually. I mean, I
can be persuaded into saying it's only one worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's worse.
Yeah, I was going to give it a 4 or a 5.
All right. So a Doug 5 is definitely like an us 3. So that's,
you want to go with a 3 then?
Yeah,
3 seems fair.
Well, again, this is Iron Maiden trying and failing. We've just listened to 2 albums of them not trying and failing.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, it's a step in the right direction. And it should be noted, this is the last record they released, in this run that's on a major label and has a reasonable apparent production budget.
And I guess, oftentimes when new singers come in, there's a hurdle there. There's something to overcome. And it's rare for a new singer album to blow anyone away. So they're already starting.
You're stuck writing for the previous vocalist.
Yeah.
At least you know what you have.
So, I mean, there is a natural hole here, and it is kind of it's a predictable stumble, and it is kind of impressive that it could be a lot worse.
So,
I mean, I still, you give some 18-year-old, queue up some digital editing program and take the single B-sides. There's a decent album hiding here. You just got to cut what's there to 40 minutes and add in the 2 songs.
Release the Gers cut.
Yeah, and again, I would say, so of the songs that are decent, Blaze wrote the single. He wrote "I Live My Way," the B-side. That's good. But anyway, enough on X Factor.
All right, so the tour for X Factor, they're it's the '90s. They're playing smaller venues, including clubs and theaters in the U.S. Think about that. So, they're still doing stadiums and large arenas in South America, and still popular in Greece. Stage production was smaller, obviously, but it included the 2 Eddies, the mobile lighting rig, and the backdrops. This album had the lowest sales since 1981 at 1.3 million copies. And remember, this is as CD sales, as music sales are still going up in general during this time. It's not till the early 2000s when it crests. So, or late 90s. So let's see. They released a compilation album, Best of the Beast, including Virus, which is the single you were talking about, which the lyrics attack the critics who had written off the band. Classy move there. And then in '98, time to release Virtual 11. So, 11th studio album. That's something I don't know if I addressed. The X Factor is the 10th album, and Virtual 11 is the 11th album. So great.
Yay. Very creative.
So with Virtual 11, we're back in Steve Harris's barn. Probably even less money based on the sound.
They weren't careful enough moving the logo, so it lost some of the points off the logo. It's now like just like a cookie cutter, just like flat square. It still says Iron Maiden in the same style it did. It's just not as fancy as your shirt there.
They apparently bought a lot of red ink at some point and decided they needed to use it all for the album cover.
Yeah, so the album
and this cover is I think this is the same guy who did Fear of the Dark. And the original themes of the album, as we'll learn, was virtual reality. But they were combining this with the Ed Hunter video game and with the Iron Maiden soccer cross promotion they were doing. So that's why the artist had to add this soccer field that the kid is looking at in the VR headset.
Okay.
Yup.
Wow. That's doing a lot of work poorly.
No, this is...
And a trigger warning, Matt.
It's a
turn it off.
It's a photo of them in their football kits.
I think for West.
Boo! West.
Jeez.
Assholes.
Well, yeah, this is Steve Harris reading a book on business, and we need to diversify. What's big these days? Computers. Okay, we'll do a video game, and I like soccer.
People like footy and virtual reality.
So prior to the album's release, the band organized a publicity tour in which they held football matches across Europe with guest musicians and pro footballers from the UK.
Oh, Maiden created their own football team, but they never got to compete in an official game. These football players never got to share the playing field with the band, despite the fact that a multitude of internet portals assure it.
Well, there's a picture and everything.
Yeah, so they this modified logo, by the way, they used all the way up until the Book of Souls.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yep. Glad they took some character off that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, and then there were keyboard parts performed by Steve Harris, as opposed to the bass tech. I guess he couldn't hold the single note very well, so Steve Harris had to come in and I don't know. I don't remember how the keys sound on this one.
That's pretty good. The production is cut rate on this one.
Huh.
I'm not paying a guy. So it was more upbeat because everything's more upbeat than the X Factor.
But
yeah, this. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm just gonna say breaking news. If we get a $31 patron, I will buy and wear a West Ham Iron Maiden soccer jersey.
I think that's a good price actually for a soccer jersey. With shipping.
Free shipping, man. eBay.
How about that?
Condition used.
Yeah. Well, wash it before. So, track listing. Future Real, The Angel and the Gambler, both of those were the singles. Lightning Strikes Twice, The Klansman, When Two Worlds Collide, The Educated Fool, Don't Look to the Eyes of a Stranger, and Como Estés, Amigos.
So this album is 100% Maiden. That takes the darkness out of the last one. It's just there's absolutely nothing good.
Yeah, this album is Steve Harris syndrome, like to the extreme. The Angel and the Gambler is just short of 10 minutes, but there's about 90 seconds worth of song there that has been stretched out into that 10 minutes. The Klansman, same thing. I can't that one's 9 minutes long, and most of it's the same goddamn thing. And it baffles me that they played the Klansman, with Dickinson. Somehow he didn't have a problem with it. Maybe Steve was like, "You're gonna have to play ball, Bruce, and not footy."
Yeah.
Don't Look to the Eyes of the Stranger. That's another 8-minute song where there's nothing in it. It's Don't Look to the Eyes of a Stranger for about 6 of those 8 minutes.
I actually want to say it's offensive to song titles. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't work as a. You know what my favorite track on this album is? Don't Look to the Eyes of a Stranger. It's like, what?
And just looking at it on Metal Archives, the 4 verses, for 8 minutes, and by 4 verses I mean 2, and then the chorus.
Yeah,
I do like how the beginning of "Don't Look to the Eyes of a Stranger" like kind of rips off Nirvana's heart-shaped box.
Well, and all these. So, "Future Real" is actually an okay song.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it clocks in at 3 minutes.
Written by Blaze.
And fairly Iron Maiden-y.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes, and it's a third of the length of The Angel and the Gambler. It's half the length of most of the rest of the album. It's the tightest song on here. The single cover for that and The Angel and the Gambler have that late 90s CGI that ages so well. They're figuring out how to do 3D art in the late 90s, and it's going okay, but it's not ready for prime time. But apparently Iron Maiden thought they were.
It must have looked fine then. Then they were like, "Holy shit! Look at this."
According to Wikipedia, there's a story to The Angel and the Gambler, and it's not just words.
But I think it's like a cartoon, like when Porky Pig has the devil Porky Pig and the angel Porky Pig on his shoulders. I'm pretty sure that's the story.
What?
Well, according to Steve Harris, it is the story of these two characters. One's a guy who's been a bit of a rogue, a fly-by-night, and an angel who gets sit down to try and put him right, except he isn't having it.
All right, well, I missed the mark on that. That was
that's why there's a premise, and then just "Don't you think I'm a savior" repeated 24 times.
24 times in the first half. 24 more times. Here's an odd review for this. It says that it's this album sounds lifeless to all but the most devoted fan, and Blaze Bayley is a competent but faceless vocalist. He's not faceless. He's been in the band for years at this point, and they're still forcing him to sing outside of his range where he sounds good and powerful. And I think Future Real might be the exception.
Right.
So that you get some might behind it. But again, that's all just the notes that are chosen, and probably chosen for him because he wouldn't do that to himself. Yeah, and I think I'm ready to throw some numbers down.
Well, I was so Lightning Strikes is about lightning striking. That's like the second best song, sort of. The Klansman we've talked about, The Educated Fool that's about Steve Harris realizing that in middle age, he doesn't have the answers he didn't have when he was 20. And then Don't Look to the Eyes of the Strangers about the paranoia he feels as a father on people around his daughter. And he strings both of those to like half the album.
Okay.
I actually like if they took 2 minutes off, When Two Worlds Collide is a decent Maiden song based on the movie, though Steve Harris inexplicably says it's about Blaze writing about the different worlds he's lived in. And now he's had to change and adapt to the world of being the Iron Maiden singer, except it's written from the perspective of a scientist who's double checking his math and then determining that two planets are going to crash or collide, and they do. And there's anger and pain among those who remain. And the scientist was right. And classic line, for the 100th time, I checked the declination.
You can't hit a song with the word declination in it.
Yeah, it's honestly, if they took 2 minutes off of that, that's a good Maiden, here's the last movie Blaze to watch song. And I do want to give acknowledgement to Como Estes Amigos, which is meant to be a reconciliation song between Iron Maiden and the British people and the folks of Argentina around the Falklands.
Yep.
It's a little repetitive on the record, but Blaze does a great live version of this.
He does. And he apparently sings this all the time. And Iron Maiden has never performed it live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just one other, again, we talked about how there were 4 songs on the last record that could have been on it that weren't. On this record, Nomad, Dream of Mirrors, Mercenary, and Blood Brothers from Brave New World were written in the sessions for this record.
Oh, wow.
And Mercenary is a short, fast song that would have been great. And the rest are way too long, but they're better than what's on here.
Well, now I know why Blood Brothers is so terrible.
And it is asserted Blaze wrote the lyrics to Dream of Mirrors.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's the more you know.
What happens when we both do research?
Yeah.
See, internet guy, we're listening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're still mad at that guy?
I will never not be mad at that guy.
I do want to point out that I love the fact that as an attempt to bring the British and Argentine people closer together, the song just has like one Spanish phrase and then is in English with amigo every once in a while.
Jeez. So
what an olive branch.
Before we throw down some numbers,
perspective, we know what would lead to reconciliation.
I can think of one.
Just 2 loose ends to tie up. So the Klansman is that about Braveheart? Is that
yes?
Most recent movie
Steve Harris saw.
Okay.
I mean, it's about William Wallace, but no, it's about Braveheart.
Yeah. No, it's about Braveheart. And then apparently for this tour, they announced there would be a massive show with huge production, including stadium leveling amounts of pyro.
Whoa.
and they used bigger backdrops and lighting rigs. However, they
like that.
fans did not see pyrotechnics and the kind of production comparable with the 80s monumental stage sets as was previously announced for this tour. So the fans were hoodwinked. So Blaze Bayley left after this album in January 1999 when he was asked to leave the band during a meeting.
Band meeting, y'all.
And they pointed to his voice issues during the tour, which Doug talked about earlier. And then, although Yannick Gers stated this was partly the band's fault for forcing him to perform songs pitched outside of the natural range of his voice, at least one of them admitted it. But it's not partly. It's entirely. It's entirely their fault. This album. So I am ready to go ahead and rate this a 1 just for Future Real. But I could go lower. But I want to acknowledge that Future Real's not bad.
Future Real, When Worlds Collide, and Como Estas Amigos.
I do like songs about math, but
I mean, Declination is. Is it a 2 or is it a 1? It's a 2. I feel it's beyond a failure, but there's still some moments in here.
Well, I know what songs those moments aren't in.
Yeah, all of them. No, it's a 1. It's a 1. It's a virtual 1.
I want to retroactively add a point for each of these sections of our review for 72 Seasons, because this album is so bad it makes other albums better. So for those at home, I originally gave Act 1 of 72 Seasons a 7.5. It's now an 8.5. Act 2 I gave a 7. It's now an 8. And Act 3 I would love to give it a 10.5, but I won't do that. I'll give it a perfect 10. So there's your update for the Metallica 72 Seasons review.
That Camelot album is now the best album of the year.
Yeah.
It's
Tim's
a 1.
up to a recommend on the Memoriam CD.
and this is for our longtime listeners. Whatever previous score adjustment I gave the Minnesota Wild, I want to reverse it, because I bet they like The Angel and the Gambler.
They definitely do.
Well, and so during this period, and in fact, signed to the same label is Bruce Dickinson, who
really
who doesn't. Again, Bruce Dickinson is just as annoying as he is. He succeeds when he doesn't try, and he succeeds when he tries at basically everything, it would seem. So he'd gone off. He did a couple more solo records, including that single "Shoot All the Clowns," classic.
That's a good album.
Then he did an alternative album with his band called Skunk Works.
I forgot about that.
This is in between him becoming an airline pilot and writing a novel. Then I still don't know the actual narrative as to why he did it, but he's like, I'll rehabilitate everything all at once. So he reunites with Adrian Smith. They connect with very talented guitarist and producer Roy Z. They sign with Sanctuary, Maiden's label as of this record, and release Accident of Birth, a fantastic record with a Derek Riggs cover, and an even better record that's in 97, and then in 98 is Chemical Wedding, which is this great kind kind of groove metal with Iron Maiden dynamics. Like, I mean, people still say this is better than any new Maiden often. There's a 2005 one that was very good too. So Maiden has to compete with this. And for our Patreon listeners, we're going to watch the Accident of Birth video where they go all out in Judas Priest leather, the thing Bruce Dickinson never did. They're just like, fuck it, all in metal.
Well, it's interesting here because Bruce, is twice as productive in this time period as Iron Maiden. That's 4 albums to 1. And I just love that the Killer Clowns, what is it? Shoot All the Clowns. Basically, the record label Good says, make it sound like Aerosmith. And Bruce said, okay.
Yeah, it's the fear of the dark and no prayer syndrome. It's like it's all technically proficient and he's not trying. So in a sense, that's a home run. Then he goes back to writing about, epic poetry and things with Chemical Wedding and all. And it's, that was a metal album of the year to many people for 98 still.
Like, if you told me this Shit All the Clown song was a Blind Melon song, I would believe it.
Yeah, and Blaze, after he left, consistently released albums after leaving Iron Maiden. So he put out Silicon Messiah in 2000. Then he had albums in 2002, 4, 8, 10, 12, 16, 17, 18, and 21.
Yeah, and I have to say they're almost all of them they're all good, and most of them are good to great or great even. And especially those first two, Silicon Messiah and the 10th Dimension, early Andy Sneap productions. It's got the traditional British metal sound with kind of thrash groove too. Really contemporary, hold up well, and it was only uphill from there. Whatever I mean. They're like, he probably has the most consistent solo career of all the second singers of big bands, and it's almost all great. And he plays the good Maiden songs he was involved with better with his solo bands.
Yeah. We should watch that too. It's going to be a good few months to be a patron.
Exactly. I mean, every month is, but this month
I saw Blaze live in 2002 in London on the 10th Dimension tour, and that man is like the intensity in which he performs, amazing. I met him very briefly, very nice guy too.
Blazing?
I'm not going to do the sound for that.
Oh.
All right. Well, we're going to pick up in the next episode with the return of Bruce Dickinson and the world, and however far we get after that. Who'd have thunk this would take so many episodes? But, it must be done, and it must be done to completion.
And I'm sure we've hit a floor and nothing bad will happen next.
Nope, and nothing culturally insensitive either. Yep. All right. So,
oh boy.
Until next time, Metal Nation, keep the songs that are written for you in your vocal range so you don't blow it out and blow your vocals out. Blow your vocals out and get fired from a band on the decline anyway. Got it?
Got it.
Got it.
See you on the soccer field, amigo.